Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine, and I'm Professor of Sustainability Science at Lund University. I have been working in the field of sustainability for around 25 years now, both in theory and in practice. And in the next 25 minutes, I will give you a very small glimpse into my field of work, related science, and their application in practice. So in simple terms, sustainability science is about finding solutions to complex global challenges that threaten the existence of humanity and the planet. Examples are climate change, biodiversity loss, disasters, mental health crisis, poverty, or war. Sustainability science and practice thus focus on existential threats and their inherent uncertainty. And our work is then about developing knowledge for guiding actions that allow us to meet our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And the idea is really to think into 7 generations into the future. Sustainability science and practice are thus based on a very broad vision. And I would like to invite you to please close your eyes for a minute to imagine and get a feeling for this vision. So sit back and get quiet for a moment. Close your eyes and take one deep breath. Then imagine how a sustainable world would look and feel like. Imagine a world without poverty or hunger. A world where everyone enjoys good health, well-being, quality education, and gender equality. Everyone has access to clean water and sanitation, and the world is powered by clean energy. Everyone lives in sustainable cities and communities. Life below water is thriving, so is life on Earth, life on land. We all feel safe, knowing that our peace and justice is governed by care-driven institutions and meaningful partnerships that help us to stay committed and evolve and grow together. See yourself in this world and how you help to sustain it. Then take one deep breath. And then you're welcome to open your eyes again. What I have briefly summarized in our short contemplation are the SDGs, the 17 development goals that world leaders agreed on in 2015 and that we committed to reach by 2030. It's a beautiful vision and something that is definitively worth working for. But unfortunately, our reality looks different. In fact, our society's trajectories remain deeply unsustainable. It is clear that our dominant sustainability approaches have not catalyzed the necessary change. One reason for the situation is that the vast majority of sustainability scholarship, education, and practice has so far mainly focused on the external world, ecosystems, wider socioeconomic structures, and technology. In fact, sustainability challenges are generally framed as external threats or crises, and we therefore try to address them with external, primarily technical measures. And this is simply because the way we define problems automatically determines our responses to them. A second aspect of reality has thus been vastly neglected, our inner lives and inner capacities. But what is changing the narrative now is that we are increasingly understanding that the threats and crises we are facing are in fact a reflection of an inner human crisis. But what does this mean? And how did we get there? It means that we are currently facing an interesting point in time. On the one hand, many of us are probably living the utopia of their grandparents. We should not forget all the positive things, how fortunate we are. Most of us are probably enjoying the privilege of a life with modern healthcare, democracy, and human rights. At the same time, the advancements that we are experiencing also have a downside or a kind of unintended side effect. So we are seeing an ecological catastrophe together with a mental health crisis, poverty, and political turmoil. And this situation relates, amongst other things, to the fact that we are living in an increasingly complex, highly interdependent, and fast-paced world where threats in one area quickly become global threats. And we are experiencing exponential technological development with internet, social media, etc. The result is what we call a VUCA world. And VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It describes the situation of constant, unpredictable change that is now the norm in many industries and areas of today's world. And the situation also affects our personal lives, forcing us to constantly rush and to reorient or reinvent ourselves several times during our lifetime. It is very easy to feel overwhelmed. But if we look deeper, we can see that the VUCA world and the increasing threats we are facing are in fact a reflection of an inner human crisis. They result from a kind of alienation, which is an integral element of modern life. They result from modern society's narrative of separation, which assumes that our thinking mind is separate from our feelings and bodily emotions, that we are all separate from each other, that some humans are superior to others, and that we humans are separate and superior to the rest of the natural world. We therefore call this inner crisis also a crisis of separation or a crisis of disconnection. It manifests in our daily lives where we are relentlessly and increasingly exhausting and exploiting ourselves, others, and the planet. And sustainability is thus about our inner rather than our outer world. Gustav Speth, former chair of the United Nations Development Group, expressed this in the following way. I used to think that the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought with 30 years of good science, we could address those problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. Or in other words, what we can see, so the crises that define our world today are just like the tip of the iceberg that is visible to us. But around 90% is hidden. And these are our underlying patterns of behavior and associated structures, as well as our mindsets that are ultimately responsible for creating the crisis that we see today. So based on this understanding, the question therefore becomes how we can then move from a situation where we are relentlessly and increasingly exhausting and exploiting ourselves, others, and the planet, towards a more caring and thus sustainable society. And this requires us to ask and address existential questions, that is, questions about our identity, how we relate, and how we are connected to ourselves, others, and the world around us. And in turn, this requires us to ask how we can then unleash our inner potential to care and commit to effecting change for a better life and to support individual, collective, and planetary well-being. So over the past few years, I and other scholars have increasingly taken up these questions, and our work has led to the emergence of a new field of work. And this new field has different names, such as inner transformation for sustainability, or integrated inner-outer transformation, or even existential sustainability, because of that existential question that it poses. And related work supports new narratives and pathways that can better address the root causes of today's polycrisis, as summarized in the Imagine framework. So it is about imagining new narratives and pathways, and we do this, or we want to do this, based on an in-depth understanding of the linkages between the mind and today's sustainability crisis, which is illustrated here in this figure, which shows that mind sustainability nexus. So it shows that the mind can be seen as a victim of today's crisis, like you see in the form of climate anxiety, for instance. It can also be seen as a barrier for adequate action to address these, which relates to biases and our short-term thinking, for instance. And at the same time, as a root cause of the many crises we see, as I just explained. So the mind sustainability nexus also indicates that it is possible to move from the current situation, which is a vicious cycle of deteriorating personal and planetary well-being, to a virtuous cycle of personal and planetary flourishing. And it also points towards the inner qualities and capacities needed to support this change. And these capacities and the way they influence sustainability outcomes have been identified in the so-called inner-outer transformation model. And this model identifies 5 clusters of so-called transformative capacities, and it explains how they affect our relationships to ourselves, others, and the world around us, which are expressed in our beliefs, values, and worldviews, and how this ultimately influences our choices and how we act in ways that can support transformation through the regeneration of human and planetary well-being. And the model also indicates the measures and activities that are needed to support transformation and to nurture transformative capacities. Now, this scholarly work has also been taken up in practice, and examples include the development and implementation of the so-called Inner Development Goals, the IDGs. And I've been an official academic advisor from the very beginning of the initiative, and Luxus, my organization, is one of the founding organizations of the initiative. So the Inner Development Goals framework is not a scientific, but a communication tool, similar to the SDGs. And it aims to advocate for the role of transformative capacities for sustainability. It has already been adopted by several companies, governmental agencies, educational bodies, and even a country, which is Costa Rica. And the framework consists of 23 capacities that are clustered under the headings of being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. And these clusters are very similar to the 5 clusters of the inner-outer transformation model, which I introduced before. So now, in the context of the work that you're doing, I would like to highlight here the importance of 3 capacities. And these are inner compass, compassion, and active hope. And later I will also refer to the aspect of creativity and art. So if we trace the roots of today's sustainability crisis through a culturally entrenched story of separation, as I explained before, we can clearly see the potential role of compassion, intrinsic value orientation, so that inner compass, and hope. Because nurturing compassion and an inner compass entail an exploration of how we relate to ourselves, others, and the world at large in reflective, meaningful, and responsible ways. And this exploration then nurtures and gives rise to what I call active hope, or a mature expression of hope, which I see as the aspiration to manifest our full potential, trust that this is possible, and an energy that is engaged in serving this unfolding for individual, collective, and planetary well-being. So sometimes you also talk about triple well-being because it has these 3 levels: the individual, the collective, and the planetary level. But nurturing certain transformative capacities like compassion is unfortunately not enough. As indicated by the inner-outer transformation model that I presented before, transformation can only be achieved if we systematically support inner transformation across all scales, so the individual, the collective, and the system level. And measures at individual and collective levels involve activities that can help us to tap into our inner potential, help us to discover our individual thinking and the internalized cultural messages of separation, superiority, and instrumentalization, and develop alternative approaches and fields of change. Now, this can take the form of creating related education, working environments, networks, art exhibitions, or festivals. Measures at the system level aim to systematically mainstream the consideration of inner dimensions, so inner capacities and values, into existing institutional and political systems. So it's about the institutionalization of integrated measures that link inner and outer dimensions of sustainability. So it entails modifying organizations' vision statement, policies, regulations, working structures, all tools for project management, resource allocation, communication, monitoring, evaluation, you name it. It's about everything. It's about revising everything we are doing in a way that we take into account also the inner dimension of sustainability. So one example would be to change communication structures and mechanisms by moving away from the common meta message that supports feelings of powerlessness and anxiety towards communicating a new theory of change that supports agency and hope, in line with what I explained before. Now, importantly, from an ethical standpoint, it is crucial to highlight that the work of inner-outer transformation and across the presented 3 scales or levels is not about saying that we need to fix or change other people's beliefs, values, and worldviews, because this would turn people into objects to be changed, rather than seeing them as change makers or agents of change. So this would just preserve business as usual through a dualistic, blaming, fix it and fix others mentality that reinforces current unsustainable paradigms. So instead, from a sustainability perspective, we need to create measures, spaces, and conditions that nurture a culture of inner development, mutual support, and engagement from a place of shared universal values and interconnection. And this will then ultimately rattle unsustainable norms, cultures, and power structures. And art and creativity and imagination can play an important role in this context. So I hope that you will all embark on the journey of linking inner work and sustainability in the context of your own work. Now, my own journey in this field led me to the creation of the Contemplative Sustainable Futures program 9 years ago. And I wanted to share a poem with you here now. Perhaps in a form of a short contemplation, because I think it helps to make the whole field a bit more tangible, a bit more personal, and understand what it is really about. So I invite you to close your eyes again for a minute. So please take a moment to let your body become still and close your eyes. Then try to sit with your back straight, but not rigid, and try to not lean back against the chair. So instead sit a little bit away so that your back can support itself. And then pay attention to the place where you feel your breath the most. But just continue breathing naturally while you then listen with your mind, with your heart and your body to my poem. And the poem is called It's One Story. As a child, I grew up with strong feelings, a deep sense of who I am and what is important in life. I felt one with the world. Talking to the wind in autumn, dancing with snowflakes in winter, listening to flowering in spring, and jumping with grasshoppers in summer, living and caring were one. As I became older, culture took over. The stories I heard began to color my life. I went to school. I learned that adults and experts know, not children. I learned that knowledge is external, not internal. Kicked out of the world of wonders and wisdom, I started filling my brain with knowledge to find a new place in the world. I went through academia, learned that the truth is complicated, learned to express myself in complicated ways. Over time, I ceased to understand myself, hiding under layers and layers of othering to feel protected. At one point, my heart and body became rebellious. My voice refused to repeat other stories. My thoughts refused to ignore my feelings, feelings of partiality, imperfection, of separation. I lost my voice. Then I saw the separation in the world, how relentlessly we exhaust ourselves, others, and the planet around us, how we seek comfort in material distractions. Consumerism, injustice, climate change. It's me. It's us. It's one story. Searching for a new voice is scary, and a strong headwind rolls out there. But if you understand my silence, you may understand my words. Delving into stillness, you may hear my call. So before we will end this short contemplation, so keep your eyes closed and just move your attention to what is happening in your mind. Are there any thoughts that were triggered by the poem? Then turn to your feelings. How do you feel? Are there any feelings that were triggered by the poem? And then turn to your bodily sensations. How does your body feel? Just try to rest in awareness for some time. And then I invite you to take one deep breath again. And you can now end this exercise by opening your eyes. So the result of my own journey and the Contemplative Sustainable Futures program, which I established 9 years ago, has led to different advancements or changes in my own context. So at Lund University, we work today with integrating transformative capacities across different disciplines, departments, and levels. And so first we integrate these capacities into various undergraduate and postgraduate courses, such as the course on sustainability and inner transformation, or the course on psychology and climate change. And there's a living the sustainability life track, something like that. Second, we also offer regular seminars to staff and students that relate to transformative capacities and the IDGs. Third, the IDGs are also included in some of our student career services, for instance, at the School of Economics and Management. Fourth, several of the university's faculties are also engaged in research projects that explore how inner transformative capacities can be best integrated into education at all levels. Fifth, Lund University is financing some strategic collaborations that are related to linking inner and outer transformations, such as the Existential Resilience Collaboration Initiative. And we also collaborate closely with the Lund Science Center, where we will, over the coming years, systematically integrate the IDGs into all internal and external operations and educational activities. And finally, there are other initiatives at the administration and policy levels. And here the focus is on discussions about how to integrate inner capacities, such as the IDGs, and develop new policies to improve the working environment of staff. Now, beyond Lund University, our work and research and the models that I presented before have been taken up by many academic institutions and private sector organizations around the world, as well as stakeholders such as the IPCC, IPBES, UNDP, and many other organizations. And here you can see some related policy documents which we wrote for UNDP, the Inner Green Deal, the Mindfulness Initiative, and most recently, the Club of Rome. And with this, I hope that I have given you a small glimpse into my world, the field of inner-outer transformation for sustainability. And if you want to read more about related science and the mentioned models, you can find them here on our website. And here on the slide, you can find the hyperlinks to the references which I mentioned in my presentation. And with this, I would like to finish my presentation. And I hope that we will find the time to discuss the different issues that I presented in person. Thank you so much.